So I'll introduce myself first. So my name's James. I'm the head of PPC and SEO at Moonfruit. I was previously working at Penguin Books. And today we're going to be talking about SEO and how to make it work for you. So it's going to be, I'm not really too sure who's in the audience. I'm going to ask you some questions in a minute just to get a bit of a steer, but I think it's going to be quite a top line. In fact, I can show you an agenda of what we're going to talk through. So I'm going to quickly run through what SEO is in case anyone's really unfamiliar with it as a concept. I'm going to talk a little bit about why it matters, particularly for small businesses. And then most of the presentation is going to be about how to actually apply it. So if I can just get some hands in the air, who here currently owns their own website? Okay, so that's about half of you. Of those people, how many people own a Moonfruit website? One of you, very good. Give that man a prize. Most of the examples I'm going to give when I'm showing aspects of SEO will probably use Moonfruit website screen grabs. Don't worry about that if you don't have a Moonfruit website, because I think the functionality will be broadly the same. Out of the people who don't own a website, is anyone thinking about building one anytime soon? Yeah, a couple of people thinking about doing it. And also, finally, who is kind of doing SEO now in some capacity? Who would say they're like actively doing SEO? 2 people, cool. Okay, that's useful. So let's kick off really quickly with what SEO is. Hello, welcome. So I think a lot of the bamboozlement about SEO comes down to a definition of it. I think a lot of people view it as quite a complicated subject matter, and whole books have been written about it. But I think for me, ultimately, it's a very, very simple thing. I've written my own definition here. So it's just basically the strategies you use to increase the traffic that a website receives from search engines, and that's from the non-paid side of search. I think the things to bear in mind is that Google is all about user experience, right? So Google is trying to show web pages for search results that are highly relevant to that query and come from an authoritative source. So those are 2 words you're going to hear me say like quite a lot over the next half an hour: relevancy and authority. I think SEO is more and more, or rather less and less about manipulation and gaming the system, and more about content. Content marketing and SEO overlap a lot. I think having unique and fresh content that very effectively answers someone's search for a product or an information or service is what you're trying to achieve as much as possible. So, having just spoken very briefly about what SEO is, I think it's also worth clarifying what SEO is not, and maybe just debunking a few myths. I'm sure all of you have read an article at some point claiming that SEO is dead. It seems to be very en vogue at the moment, announcing the death of SEO. I would say that's very definitely not true. I think where the truth lies is there are some aspects of SEO that are certainly dying. What I would call the old, more manipulative style of SEO. So by that I'm talking about keyword stuffing, which some of you might know of as a concept. So that's basically where you take a single keyword that you're wanting to rank high for, and you basically paste it everywhere you can without really any thought. So the content you end up creating is effectively very spammy. And a long time ago that might have worked when Google and Bing weren't very sophisticated and were literally just counting instances of keywords. That won't work now, for sure. You will be penalised. And I think another aspect of SEO that's dying, and I think is unlikely anything you guys have done, but buying links is not really clever anymore, particularly buying links from directories. So in the past you had these what were effectively called link farms, where there would just be a list of categories and a whole host of links, and that would be the whole site. It would purely exist to just pass link juice back into domains, but no one ever used those sites, so Google is effectively either shutting them down or just ignoring those links. So yeah, SEO, you'll be pleased to hear SEO is not dead, otherwise this presentation would be extremely short, but it is changing, and it's changing in a good way. It's changing in a way that's making it less easily able to be manipulated. Right, so SEO is not dead. SEO is also not a dark art. I think this is an important point, particularly for you guys. I think a lot of people feel that they can't get into SEO because it's inherently difficult, or it's inherently complicated, or it requires extensive knowledge of code. None of that is true. My own background before I went into SEO, I used to be a journalist and an editor, which is a little bit unusual, but I think shows the point that you don't need to be a programmer to do SEO. And more, I think there will be people coming from a background like mine, people who are content-led. That is where the onus of SEO is. There are some things you're going to have to pick up, but I would say do not be put off from doing your own SEO strategy because you think it's overly technical. And the last point I would make, and I think this is a critical one, is SEO is not a quick fix. So even if you're optimizing your site really, really well, if it's a new site, it's going to take quite a lot of time to build your authority. So your authority is going to come primarily from links from external sources into your web pages, and building up credibility through social sharing. You are not going to rise high to the top of the rankings if there's a reasonable level of competition, and a lot of the other sites that rank high have spent time building their authority. They've been around a long time. They've got thousands of links. That's just not going to happen. You might find where there's less competition and your keyword term is more niche, there is a chance. But I would say SEO is a long-term game. So a lot of people kind of get initially disappointed that their SEO efforts aren't reaping rewards. I would say persevere. As long as you're doing it right, it will generally work out. What I'd like to talk about next, the next point, is how Google actually goes about ranking all these web pages. So when you put a search query in and you hit return, what actually happens, and how is Google determining which pages to surface for that query? So apparently Google uses up to 200 different factors to assess these pages, which is kind of mind-boggling when you think about it. So you bash something into Google, hit return, and then in a fraction of milliseconds it crawls a huge database of index pages from across the internet, and its algorithm gives weighting to all of these factors, and ultimately it assigns each page a score and then ranks them by that score. If anyone's interested actually in what these 200 factors are, there's a website called backlinko.com. You can actually go and see what they all are. You'll be pleased to hear I'm not going to go through all 200 here, and I don't think there would be any point. I'm sure there's some in there that I don't know about. I think what's key, again, is this notion of authority and of relevancy. And I've listed some of the factors I think that are particularly important and worth bearing in mind. So number one is the authority of your domain and the authority of your page, what Google often refer to as PageRank. So this is the basically the measure of particularly how many links are coming in to both your domain and your page. There's also an element of how old your domain is, and with PageRank, there's an element of relevancy too. But the authority is a measure of how long you've been around and how many people have given a signal that the content on that page is worth visiting and digesting. The second point is how targeted your page is for that keyword. So we'll come to this a bit later, the notion of on-page optimization. So as much as possible, you want to be making the architecture and the content of your page clearly relevant for the given keyword you're targeting. An increasingly important factor is shares of your page via social networks. I think Google and Bing are looking at this more and more as a key signal, for the simple reason that you're not going to spam your mates. You're not going to share something and post it on your friend's Facebook wall or into their Google Plus feed, or share a tweet with them if it's rubbish, because your friends are going to disown you very quickly. So it's a very important signal that when you share content that you're saying you want to distribute it to those people you know. And the final element I put here relates to user behavior related to your page. I think a lot of people forget that this also plays a part. So the click-through rate from the search engine results page itself is important. Even if you're ranked high but no one's clicking on your listing because perhaps it doesn't look relevant, you will start to drop down. And equally, if you're ranked fairly low on the page but your proportional click-through rate is high, you will start to move up. And Google also looks at behavior on the page. So if your bounce rate, does everyone know what bounce rate is? So bounce rate is a single page visit. So you come into a website, you don't go anywhere else and you leave. That, for most websites, is bad. I mean, for things like blogs, it can be okay, but for a website that's got a lot of content, if you're leaving on the first page you come in on, that's not a good signal. So a high bounce rate suggests that the content is inappropriate. And search engines will also look at visit duration as well. So when you come into a website, how long do you spend there? Do you go and investigate other pages in the website? The more that happens, the better your chances of ranking high. So engagement with your site does count for a lot too. Right, okay, so we've talked a bit about what SEO is and what it's not. We've discussed different factors that affect rankings on SEO. I'm going to really quickly cover why it's important, and then we'll move on to the things you can do to actually make your SEO better. So, why does SEO matter? I think this, well, before I get to this pie chart, I think for small businesses in particular, it has real value because it's potentially a consistent long-term driver of traffic into your site, with the huge bonus that the clicks from organic are free. So, as a small business, you're not going to typically have a large marketing budget. So you're going to be sort of trying to squeeze everything you can out of the budget you've got. And if you can achieve a relatively high rank and stabilize it, you've got a way to consistently find new markets, new customers, and also build your brand. People are going to be discovering you for the first time through SEO, and that can reap significant rewards. What this pie chart shows is the importance of, well, really the importance of choosing an appropriate keyword, because 92% of clicks from Google go to those websites that are on the first page, so typically the first 10 results. People generally find something in those first 10 results that satisfies their query, so not many people push on to page 2. So it could conceivably be better to go for a keyword where you've got a chance of ranking relatively high and getting onto that first page than going for one that maybe has a lot more search volume, but realistically you're unlikely to get there. So there's an element of realism when it comes to choosing keywords. But page 1 is key. Some better news, perhaps, if you haven't got a lot of money to invest in paid search advertising, is that of search engine clicks, I think this is actually across Google and Bing and the other search engines aggregated, 92% of those clicks are on the organic section. So actually quite a lot of people ignore paid. So, as a small business, if you're not doing paid advertising, you're not going to be priced out of the market if you're achieving reasonable rank. Okay, so at this point you might be thinking, great, where do I start? And maybe that's the reason you've come to this talk. What should I be doing at this point, given that information? I would say your first port of call, definitely, is keyword research. Start with your keywords. Because your keywords really, they're the kind of building blocks of your SEO strategy. If you don't get this bit right, the rest of it is going to become a lot harder work. And you need to be looking for keywords that describe your services and your products, and maybe keywords that offer an opportunity, that they offer some kind of niche where there's not much competition, there's a chance for you to get some visibility. But you can create content on your website that's relevant to the keywords you select. So how are you going to go and find these keywords? Well, there's one tool in particular, I'm sure you've heard of it, that I would recommend you go to first, and that tool is Keyword Planner. So Keyword Planner lives in the AdWords suite. So you will need an AdWords account to be able to use it. When you sign up for an AdWords account, you don't have to pay, it's free. It does give you the capacity to do search advertising if you want to. That might be something you're interested in. But to use Keyword Planner, you don't have to pay anything. It's a very simple sign up. And when you get into the suite, what you want to be doing is you go to Tools, and then under Tools you've got Keyword Planner itself. So you're going to click on that, and that's going to take you to a page looking like this. Some of you will be familiar with this. The box you definitely need to fill something in for is this one, product or service at the top. So what you're going to put in here is a starting keyword, a keyword that you think is a realistic one for your business. Might not necessarily be one of the ones you ultimately go for, but it will be one that's used to spit out a lot of variations that you can potentially use. There are other fields you might want to fill in. Like I say, if that's the only one you want to do, fine. You can fill in a landing page if you have one. So Google will effectively scrape the content on your page and suggest keywords it thinks is more relevant to that page. If you wanted to, you could also enter a product category if that was important. And some of you might have a service, for example, that is only relevant to one territory. So in this example, if this was someone offering window cleaning services in London, they're not really going to want organic traffic from the US, right? It's not particularly important. So in this instance, they would be saying, right, I just want to see the volumes in the UK. So fill in as much of that as you want, click through again, and you'll see something like this. And you want to click on the tab Keyword Ideas up here at the top. So what Keyword Planner will do, it will show you your search term. It will show you the average number of monthly searches for that term as an exact term. So if someone typed in precisely window cleaning services and nothing else, and it will show you the number of searches for your selected territory, so in this case the UK. And it will also, and this is useful, give you a sense of the competition around that keyword. So it will list it as high, medium or low, and it will give a suggested bid. So if you were paying to advertise around this keyword, that's how much you would be paying on average to get a reasonable position. And I think that gives a bit of a sense of the competition, so that you've got the competition field and the bid together, give you an idea of how tricky it's going to be to rank high for that keyword. One thing a lot of people do is they put in the keyword, you get the keyword at the top, and then Google will show you about 10 keywords underneath that it considers to be the most relevant. And a lot of people stop there and they just look at those keywords. I would say don't do that, because you can see in the top right-hand corner, Keyword Planner is actually giving you 800 keywords, but that kind of gets hidden away. So don't ignore that, because it's actually really useful. Go to the arrow button and download them all. It will download them into an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV. And then what you can do is just put some filters on that data. So I would suggest put a filter on competition, knock out everything that's high, and possibly knock out everything that's medium. So you're just looking at the low competition terms. Possibly put a filter on the search term as well. So you could put window cleaning, so all the keywords have window cleaning in them. And then rank them by monthly search. So what you'll have then done, you'll have, rather than letting Google decide what's relevant, and Google here is just giving you a load of high competition terms which you might not rank for. By doing that, you've kind of segmented your data very, very effectively and quickly to find potential opportunity. Low competition, decent volume, relevant search terms. And having done that, you can basically rinse and repeat. Go back to the start, possibly take some search terms that get spat out by your spreadsheet, and just keep creating variations until you've got a sufficient list to be useful to work with. So just a few points to remember, largely based on what I've just said. As a small business in particular, you're aiming for low competition phrases, I would say, with a reasonable level of search volume. I would avoid single word phrases. They're typically very difficult to target. It's better to go for what's called long tail, slightly more specific, more descriptive keywords where there isn't the same level of competition. Give yourself more of a chance. Think very carefully as well about what your customers will be looking for and the terms they would probably use. Think, if I was coming to my business for the first time, what potentially would I search? Think a little bit out of the box as well, be a bit creative. If you offer a local service, use localized keywords. So if you would go back to window cleaning services, if you were offering that in South London, try window cleaning services, Brixton, Forest Hill, etc. Much less competition, much more localized, much more appropriate to your business, likely to be a better keyword. And also really important, don't rush this stage. Because like I said, this is really important. This is the building block for everything that's coming later. So really, really take time to invest in this and be confident that the keywords you're going for you think will be right. Okay. Any quick questions about that before I move on? Or was that fairly clear? We're having questions at the end, actually, so feel free to hold on to them. Cool. So, right, done your keyword research. Great. What are we going to do next? The next thing I'd advise is actually going and having a look at your site. Just check the structure is okay. So if you haven't built a site yet, there's actually some merit to literally getting a pen and paper and sketching the structure out. Take it down from the home page, list your category pages, list your subcategories, make sure it's logical. Basically, you're looking for a structure that's going to be easy for humans and search engines to navigate. That's the aim. And also think carefully about your internal linking. So the thing you're trying to avoid is something called an orphan page. So an orphan page is a page that sits on your site, but nothing else, no other page on your site links into it. So when Google tries to crawl it, it can't find it. So that page is just an island, and it's been completely isolated. So do make sure that your internal linking is clean enough that everything can be found fairly easily. If you've got a Moonfruit site, don't worry if you haven't, I'm sure the process is fairly similar. If you have got a Moonfruit site, you can very easily go to the Pages tab, and then you click this link, Organize Your Pages. Basically, you get to this pop-up editor window. And this is a really, really easy and neat way to just see your structure and organize it the way you would like it. So you can add in new pages as you require, and you can flip the arrow round. They typically start right. If you flip it left, you can create a subcategory, and basically you can create sort of a structure tree of exactly what your site will look like until you're happy with it. So it's a very easy way to map your site out, and then having done that, the next process is to go and actually look at the internal links, add links as relevant from across your pages to map that structure. Okay, so keyword research is done. Site structure is clean, great. Next up is on-page optimization. I don't know whether you've heard of this term. Basically, you get on-page optimization are the things you can do to your web pages to increase the likelihood of you ranking high. So it's the stuff you've actually got control over. Off-page optimization is about external links into your site. So you can't really, unless you're really gaming the system, you can't tell people how and when to link into your site. You have less control there. This stuff, you do have control. The first thing I want to talk about is meta. A lot of you probably have heard about this. So meta, they're kind of the HTML tags that describe your page, and they typically live in the header section of your page. They do a similar thing. Both the page title and the meta description do a similar thing, but they have different value. So the page title is, again, it's a description of your page. It's what you tend to see when you go to a browser, at the top of a browser, in the browser tab, and when you see your page listed on the search engine results page, it will be the top line. So it's your opportunity to tell Google or tell Bing exactly what this page is about. You don't have a lot of space to do that. You've got about 70 characters. And I would say you probably want to be using 2 or 3 of your most relevant keywords at this point. And typically you would separate them with a pipe. Sometimes you can separate them with a dash. One thing to bear in mind is that search engines actually give a bit more weight to the first keyword in your page title, and then a little bit less to the second and a little bit less to the third. So what I would say, maybe it's different for your homepage, but for all your other pages, like don't put your brand or the name of your company first. You basically don't need to, because your pages should be ranking high for that anyway. This is a real opportunity to go for the non-brand keywords where there's more competition and put those first. Just in terms of implementation of meta tags, by the way, most free website builders make this very easy. Moonfruit is a good example. You're literally just going to go to pages, and then there's a meta tags tab, and then you just write it in and click apply, and it pastes it into the back end. So you don't need to do any coding to do this. The meta description is a little bit different. You've got much more leeway here in terms of characters. So you can write, generally you can write up to 160 characters. I mean, you can write more, but the chances are Google's going to cut it off. The meta description plays much less of a part in getting you rank. So in terms of SEO value, it's not that much per se, but what it does do, it functions as marketing copy for your page. So it displays on the search engine results page underneath the title and the URL. You've got copy underneath that, and its function is to encourage clicks onto your listing. And if you can get that click-through rate up, that will actually start to impact on your rank. But basically, you're writing something engaging, that describes your page and is encouraging people to come in and have a look. You don't need to be quite so keyword focused with the meta description. There's no harm in putting keywords in there. Definitely don't stuff, and definitely do try and, we call it curate the meta description, write something that you think is enticing. If you don't write one, Google will auto-generate one. So Google will scrape your page and pick from your content what it thinks is the best thing to put there, and it will just paste that in. And you've probably seen when you search for stuff, sometimes you see description that's just rubbish because Google's picked it from the footer or something. So that's really bad. I mean, when you see that, it might have been a site you were thinking to click on, but you see an auto-generated meta description, you're like, I'm not sure about that, I'm going somewhere else. Another key thing, and something people often forget about, is optimizing your images. So search engines can't read images, right? They can't read a photo. So you have got an opportunity to do two things, really. You can increase the relevancy of your page by describing them in a way the search engine can read. If you optimize your images, you also get a chance to appear much more high in Google Images. And that's an area where people often don't focus their efforts. So you've got a high chance of actually ranking high there if you do this right. And I think it's very simple. Basically, give the file name of your image something, it doesn't want to be like a long series of letters and numbers. Give it a descriptive file name. If it's an image that shows something related to your keyword, get the keyword in there. And also use the alt tag functionality. So in a Moonfruit site, you click on the editor pop-up window, you hit style, and then you can see you've got an alt tag button, and you've got a chance to write a tag associated with that image to basically just to describe that image. And again, an opportunity to use keywords, or at the very least, just describe that image well. So if someone's searching for something related to that image, they will be able to find it. And as well as images, content is obviously critical. You want to have pages that aren't too thin on content. There is no minimum number of words that you need on a page. At Moonfruit, we often talk about trying to get to like the 250 mark or higher, just so you've got enough for the search engines to be able to read. Something called keyword density plays its part in SEO. So again, always avoid the temptation to go down the stuffing route at this point. Like, don't just take one keyword you're targeting and put it everywhere. Think a bit more semantically. Think about keyword variations, because Google is looking for content that reads naturally. The moment Google or Bing starts to see content that looks manipulated, the chances are it will go off it. But do try and get your keyword or main keyword variations in the H1, in the URL, in the first paragraph of text, possibly near the start. But do it in a subtle way, I think is what I'm trying to say. And one final piece of on-page optimization is social aspect. So hopefully some of you have created pages for your business on social networks anyway. But in terms of what you can do on the page, having social sharing buttons is more and more important. Like I say, if you can get those signals, they will count for a lot. The good news is if you've got a Moonfruit site, some of your pages will have these automatically embedded. So if you've got a blog post, that's going to have a Facebook like button and a Twitter share button already there. If you've got a product post in the shop category, that will have the same too, plus the ability to pin. But you can configure more. And if you don't have a Moonfruit site, go ahead and add as many as you can. If you've got a Moonfruit site, also add as many as you can on top of the ones you already get. It's not particularly difficult. So there are various ways of doing it. In a Moonfruit site, what you're going to do is you're going to head to the Page tab and then go to HTML snippet. And what you've got to do is go and find a snippet that you're going to paste over here in the editor window, a piece of code. When you hit apply, it will actually put the button on your page. In terms of going to find that code, literally just go to Google and Google something like Facebook share button code. The top hit will be the relevant developer page, something like this, Facebook. So you'll put the URL to whatever you need. You can choose the layout. This one is button count. You're probably quite familiar with it. It's a small icon that shows you how many times it's been shared. Get the code, and then paste that code back into the HTML snippet. Like I say, the more social sharing buttons you have on your page, the more opportunity you're giving yourself to rank high. Okay, get a blog. How many people here have got a blog? Very good. How many people post at least once a week? Also very good. So blogs are really important for SEO. It's probably the best way to consistently get unique, fresh content into your site. It's a great way to sort of pull in long tail keywords. A lot of sites are actually quite restricted in terms of the content they can produce. So when you've got a blog, you just open that window up. You can write articles that effectively keyword bait, or you can just write about interesting stuff that's likely to get shared or picked up and then link back through to your site. So I would say, yeah, if you're not using one, get one. Use a content calendar if you can. Plan it out a bit so you're committing yourself to posting regularly, and you've got some idea of what you're going to be posting about. Do embed links through to your key pages. Pass what's called link juice, link authority through to the pages that you want a high rank for, and again optimize your blog posts so they can again use the page title and use the meta description fields to give yourself opportunity for better targeting, and promote your blog posts. Promote them across your social networks, promote them to your friends. Try and get some buzz around them. Okay, so. At this point, we've done a lot of things. We've done keyword research, we've done a lot of on-page optimization, we've got a blog, and now we're probably in a good position to just go out and get links. And this is how you're going to build your authority in the long term. There's lots of different techniques. This is by no means exhaustive. There's lots of options, but I've put various strategies you can use to try and acquire links. So blog post is one of them, and we just discussed that. I'll go through the others. So, ask for reviews of your website from prominent review sites. Hopefully they'll be positive, but often those sites have quite a high level of authority. They have a lot of links coming into them. So a link from them back to you is certainly going to help. Plus, it's a testimonial. Leverage your social networks if you haven't already. Create a Facebook page for your business, create a Twitter page, Google+, don't forget that. I know people don't really use it, but from an SEO point of view, it's very important. Find brand mentions, get proactive, like Google your brand or your company and see if you can find articles where people mention you but haven't turned that into a link. Because that's great. I mean, it's someone who's already found you and wants to write about you. So then you can just get in contact with the person who owns that page and say, it's really nice to read your article, really interesting. Would you mind, changing that into a link back into my page? 9 times out of 10, they'll say yes. And this is something we do at Moonfruit. I mean, we've got tools that actually go and scrape and find these brand mentions so we can contact the webmasters and bring the links back in, and it is effective. Write case studies for your clients or your customers and link to them. This could take the form of a blog post or even a page in itself. You link to them, chances are you've done them a favour, they're going to link back to you. So particularly if they're a high profile client, that's great link bait. Get yourself interviewed by journalists, get articles written about you, go out and talk to people, see if you can get some interest and a link back that way. And I mean, all this is general PR, right? So do your own PR. PR and SEO are very much intertwined these days, and you need to sort of go out and promote yourself to get the links back in. And finally, this is probably the last point, get some free tools, 2 in particular, 2 very handy ones. I'm sure some of you already got these. Both of them are very easy to set up from within the Moonfruit website, but if you don't have one, again, super easy. Google Analytics, just to cover the setup first of all, so you go to Google Analytics, get yourself a free account. It will give you a unique piece of JavaScript code. You don't need to read the code or understand it, but if you copy it and come back here into the setup tool, paste it in, it will be applied across the header section of your site. it will then be fully functional almost immediately. And Google Analytics is just a goldmine of information, really. It tells you where people are coming from that have got into your site, what your key landing pages are, what pages you have that really suck and need to have some work done on them, general user behavior. If anyone is interested in Google Analytics, my colleague John Fold did a similar talk to this one 2 weeks ago, all about Google Analytics. It's on the Moonfruit blog. It's very interesting, so go and have a look at that. I haven't got too much time to cover it, but if you want to know more, go and check his talk out. Google Webmaster Tools, I think the other really key one from an SEO point of view. So that is a tool, again free, that will allow you to see the SEO health of your website, what Google has been able to index, where Google is having problems searching your site, who's linked into you. Again, very valuable information, also very easy to set up. If you go and get yourself a free account, you've got various methods whereby you can verify your site. You'll choose one called Verify by Meta Tag. So again, that gives you a piece of code. Come back here, set up, paste the code in, done. And when you've got Google Webmaster Tools, one thing you should definitely do is submit an XML sitemap. So an XML sitemap is basically a list of all the pages on your site that you want Google to read, to index. And I think it's especially valuable for a small business or a new business where you don't have many links. Google might take a while to find you, and it might not be able to find you that effectively while your link profile is quite thin. So definitely go ahead and do this. If you've got a Moonfruit site, your XML sitemap is auto-generated, which is great. That saves you a bit of pain. So all you have to do is come in to Webmaster Tools, hit the Add Test Sitemap button, type sitemap.xml, submit, done. Super simple. If your website isn't on Moonfruit and it doesn't have that capacity, don't worry. You can go and generate an XML sitemap yourself. Not really much knowledge needed here. You can use one like xmlsitemaps.com, quite well known, and that will generate a site for you. And then it might have a different URL, but it will tell you what to use. And you just go in, submit your sitemap. Very, very valuable thing to do when your business is new. You'll see an impact immediately. Right, quite a lot of information to digest there. I hope that's been useful. I would say if you remember nothing else, remember these 5 points, my 5 commandments of SEO. Do that thorough keyword research using Keyword Planner. That's critical. That's the bit you start from. Invest time there. Don't do it in a hurry. Make sure your site is structured logically and your internal linking is clean. You don't have any orphan pages. Optimize your pages to target your keywords for those pages that you do want to surface in search. Use your blog. Use your social network pages. PR yourself as much as possible, all with the aim of driving quality links into your site's key pages. And lastly, set up those 2 tools I mentioned. So make sure you've got Google Analytics and Google Webmaster Tools, and do submit an XML sitemap so you can get found. Thank you.
So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very, very much for joining us this evening for our look into Google Analytics.